happening. You're welcome back. This is Newsfile, your most authoritative news analysis show. Just a few of some of your other messages. This one from Eliasu Haruna in Tamale says, Samson, how sad I am that the North comes to the news for the wrong reasons. We have a common enemy to fight, and Northerners, that is poverty. Unscrupulous politicians who must refrain from using the vulnerable youth to cause mayhem. How long can we continue to waste our lives with such impunity? Okay, so I've got a lot of messages that are coming from the North, particularly around the area where this is happening. And Chris Yao says that the delay in releasing funds to the judiciary is an affront to judiciary independence and is inexcusable. Having said that, I also recognize that development in almost every sector of life now is a shared effort between government and the private sector. The private sector participates in this endeavor not only by fulfilling its tax obligations, but these days by also going a step further with corporate social responsibility. Just wondering, could the GBA also be a little supportive in any way they can? Okay, and then some are saying that Abdul Malik is not being realistic. He's being idealistic when it comes to his hopes for the Black Stars. That is Amachi Ansayabwa. Okay, as you know, this show is brought to you by the kind sponsorship of the Bank of Africa. They have the unique banking experience without any stress or headaches, like I put it always. And that's the bank that has the products that are tailored to satisfy your corporate and personal banking needs. So just call Bank of Africa and they will give you the best that you can experience. The number to call is 0244338226. Bank of Africa, as strong as a group and close as a partner. Sasso insecticide spray, Kum Intontum Preco. And of course, you also know about Errata Motors. They give you the best vehicles for the best prices. Now, let's look at now the issue that the Electoral Commission is raising. Dr. Afari Gyan has been to Parliament this week, and the parliamentarians themselves have also mooted the need for a review of the law on biometric verification. You know, that was a thorny issue at the Supreme Court, particularly the issue about no verification, no vote. Has it become a cure to securing our ballots, or it's rather a curse? And I'll start with Bernard Mona on that, because I am aware that very soon you may hear that he is in court seeking some reliefs in respect of that particular law and others as far as the election process is concerned. Recently, I was moderating a platform by the NCCE, and you disagreed to some of the suggestions that were made. There was a categorical suggestion for the removal of NVNV because it can be a potential for chaos in the elections.
Thank you, Samson. Let me start by saying that I've had a chat with my lawyer, Benson Nichukwu, and we discussed extensively. Indeed, it was one of the issues that we wanted to go to court early with, but we decided as a strategy to deal with one aspect, that is CI-74. And thereafter, my lawyer thought that it was nice for us to wait, particularly for all the tension around the election petition.
And thanks for the reminder that CI-74, you went to court and you were successful.
Yeah. Well, I don't take it as a personal thing. I think that it was, we did that to enrich our laws to ensure that issues of conflict as to which one is superior and which is not will be clarified. And so we decided that we have to go to court. And so in the coming weeks, we should have prepared our case, and then we'll file. My attention has just been drawn to the fact that there will soon be a judicial break, and that once that is coming, possibly we could wait, or we could file whilst we wait after the break, then the matter will be heard. But surely we have we have to go to court on two things. One, I'm just imagining that if you read Article 42 of the 1992 Constitution, it lays that every citizen of 18 years and above
of sound
mind and blah, 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 who is a registered voter should be allowed to vote. Basic, that is Article 42. So clearly, once you are a registered voter, you have the right to vote.
In fact, the law itself does not bring in the question of registered voter.
You understand?
Right.
Once you are registered, you are qualified to vote. But also to vote is an option for the person who is registered. Some people may decide not to cast their vote. That one, you are not punished because you are registered and you did not vote. And so therefore, you should, if you want, you go and vote. Beyond that, if you take CI 72, CI 72 is talking about registration of the voter. And in the CI 72, you are required, as part of the evidence to be submitted for you to register, to provide either or any one of the following: a national identification card, an old voters register card, a national health insurance card, or a passport. These are what I call urban documents. If you take them, they are urban documents. In most of our communities, look, we are not all registered under the National Identification Authority. National health insurance card is an insurance, so people have to pay. So some people do not have national health insurance card. Passport is a luxury. It's a luxury document. And so I call them urban documents. Unfortunately for CI 72, we have not provided even for the basic birth set to be used. But if you take all these documents that I've spoken about, all of them require a birth set in order to get some information for you to possess them. Birth set is not one of the requirements under CI 72. So the law says in part that if you do not have any of these quote urban documents to show as proof of coming or reaching the age, two persons from the locality could identify you as having attained the age and also coming or is a Ghanaian, so you can be registered. So if CI 72 says that two persons can identify you and recommend you or suggest that you are indeed a citizen, you are of 18 years and above, and therefore you can register. CI 75 is saying that even as you are registered, you have your card, your name and other details can be found in the voters register, or what we call the polls book. You will not be allowed to vote because a machine that has been brought has said that it cannot take your fingerprints. And on that basis, you are not allowed to vote, despite that you are a registered voter, which meets the tenets of Article 42 of our Constitution. Two, that you are identified by the voter's ID card. And three, that your name and all other details can be found in the polls book. You still cannot be allowed to vote because a machine could not pick up your fingerprints. Obviously, it is not your fault that the machine refused to pick or could not pick. You did nothing wrong. Some technical error could have occurred based on which you are not identified by the machine. So you'd have queued apparently from 6 o'clock, say to 3 o'clock in the evening, or sometimes to 5 o'clock, and only to be told that you cannot cast a vote because the machine has not been able to identify.
The elections, when that happened in 2012, the elections were postponed so that people could continue the next day.
I want to give you an example.
That's what the law also says.
In the talk with my lawyer, fortunately, another lawyer, a lady lawyer, came into his office, and it was mentioned. And quickly, the lady said, this will bring some relief to his father, or to her father, who in the last election could not vote, went to the polling station, stood there from morning till around 2 o'clock. They did everything. They washed his hands more than 5 times with all manner of things. They asked him to go home, take a rest, and come after 4.
Okay.
The person came after 4 and could not still. The next day, it did not happen for the person. This is in the Esuaka area in the Eastern region. The point I'm establishing is...
would there be a need for you to proceed to court where, if it happens that there's a consensus that we have to go back to Parliament and get this struck out?
Well, as it stands now,
that has not been done.
I served notice a long time ago, and we are toying with it. And I remember that maybe the last but one time that the Electoral Commission spoke about it was at Golden Tulip. You understand? The Electoral Commission said, you cannot just imagine that one day, Kweku Baku, all of us know Kweku Baku. We know he's a citizen, he lives in Labone. Then he walks to go and cast his vote. Then he puts his finger on the machine will not pick. Then they say Kweku Baku will not vote. I'm imagining a day where President Mahama, Nana Akufo-Addo, or Nana Akomia gets to the polling station and is denied on the basis that the machine will not pick. Or even you, Samson, you get there and the machines are faulty. They are not able to identify your fingerprints. And then you are told to walk back. That is chaos. And in particular, where I come from.
Yeah, hold on there for me. I'll return to that issue. And he uses me as an example. And I'm saying I didn't have the opportunity to vote in the last elections because I was denied by virtue of this same CI-75, which suddenly took away the special, dispensation that we were giving earlier to be able to vote days before the election itself. He's talking about the verification machine. But I thought that we understood that there was also the face-only verification process. So what's the point? What are we looking to amend?
I think the issue of the biometric machine is what has generated all this controversy. There's a school of thought that says that if you don't go through the machine and the machine does not verify you, you shouldn't be allowed to vote. Then there's another school of thought that says that, look, the right to vote is so fundamental that you cannot allow a machine to determine whether I should vote for Mr. A or B. So these are the two schools of thought that are fighting for supremacy. And so I'm hearing from you that the Electoral Commissioner says that we need to take that portion away. Is that
we need to have a second look at it? But we have heard this election, think tank, the CAP governance, group, that says that let's take it away completely. Let's take it away, and he supports that view. And in fact, at the time when the election petition was going on, you would remember that part of the points that you were pushing strongly as the respondents was that a secondary law should not be used to deny a voter his constitutional right, as enshrined in Article 42, like Bernard rightly said. You are entitled to vote if you are of 18 and you are of sound mind, and you are entitled to register to vote.
You see, the introduction of a biometric verification machine, I must say, has enhanced our electoral process. For instance, it has put to paid people who otherwise would have voted twice. That must be acknowledged. Now, the issue is, how about those who are innocent and do not intend to vote twice? What if the machine does not capture their fingerprints? And I must say that, you see, we have imported a machine into this country which has not taken into consideration our special circumstances. And what do I mean by that? A person who is born in my village, who all throughout his life has been a farmer, and because of the drudgery of the work, these fingerprints, the marks, are no longer there because of the long period of hard work. Now, are you going to deprive that person the right to vote because the machine does not recognize his fingerprints? So I think what we can be doing is to tweak the law, which would be in place to check those who would want to cause mischief by voting more than once, and also to allow those who otherwise do not intend any mischief so that they can also vote. That, for me, will be the balance. But if we take it completely off, I'm afraid. Because in the last but one election, I heard people say that they have gone and they have voted 5 times. This time around, I didn't hear that because the machine was there to check them.
Whilst the president was voting in his hometown, he also expressed similar concerns and sought to almost give what the NPP sought to elevate into a directive that those who had difficulty should be allowed to vote.
Not the president's comment was taking into cognizance the fact that these are genuine people who are coming to vote. So is there a way that you can allow those people? The president's comment was not tilted or directed towards those with mischievous intentions. You get the point. So I agree with Bernard when he says that, look, a machine cannot stop somebody from exercising his vote, but we also need to understand that there are miscreants, there are deviants in society who will take advantage of the system and go in there and vote more than once. So a balance of the two, for me, is most appropriate.
Samson, just a small information. If you are a registered voter, you have a voter ID card, and you go to cast your vote, you are not, by the indelible ink, you cannot even move to another place to go and cast another vote. If there is multiple registration, multiple voting and what have you, it's an element that we can deal with. It is not solved by introducing a biometric verification machine that tends to deny many other people, particularly legitimate people, who cannot vote twice. The machine does not prevent people from doing or thumbprinting twice.
Okay.
If you thumbprinted here and you have to go to Bolsa and thumbprint again, the machine possibly will not stop you. But if you are being stopped here, it's possible the machine will stop you at another place again simply because your fingerprints have not been taken. Okay. The point is that the machine does not stop the multiple voting, but possibly it's just a way for me. I think that we have invited courts really without necessarily addressing the problems.
Nana, I'm finding out the political parties, are you in one mind about this? Are you at the den on this issue that the biometric voting should be looked at, giving a second look?
I think the Parliament, where all the parties are represented, has not come out with a considered view on the matter. What is at stake is the Electoral Commissioner going before Parliament and making suggestions. Parliament, as far as we are aware, has not debated the proposals from the Electoral Commissioner and come out with one position.
The EC says he's calling an IPAC at which these issues had to be dealt with the parties as well.
Yes. Well, so at that point, I'm sure the parties will go with positions and debate. I don't know of the position of the NPP as far as this matter is concerned.
No, you went to court on this issue, so you should have a position
on changing the law. That's what I'm saying. I mean, the Electoral Commissioner is saying that there's a problem with the biometric verification, and that he thinks that the law as it stands. I mean, you said you were a bona fide registered voter, but the machine prevented you. The Electoral Commission has told Parliament that we need to amend the law. Amaliba has said that, yes, amend it so that if the machine is not able to verify, there can be some other means of verification so that people, innocent people, are not deprived. So that's a new element that the Electoral Commission has invited Parliament to look at. So what is the problem? You have to be registered. You are entitled to be registered. That's what the Constitution says. But registration also comes with some pre-qualifications, doesn't it? It talks about being identified by two people or having this card or that card. So it comes with pre-qualifications. One of the pre-qualifications is to be biometrically verified. So as part of the registration, after having your, whether it's NHSI card, a passport, attestation by two people, you also must have your details taken by a machine. And so before you vote, we'll inspect your name in the register, your photo, your whatever. We also must ensure that the machine can attest to all of that. There's a problem with that machine attestation. Why is that problem? I am surprised, and I'm sure many Ghanaians are, that machines which are supposed to be brand new will not work.
Those who are operating them, some of them didn't actually know how to operate them.
Okay, so it's an operational matter. Those who were supposed to train them, how come the training was not done in such a way that the people could be comfortable with the machines? And these machines are new. The Electoral Commission itself had remarked that if the law is not changed, then they probably have to buy two machines for each polling station. So one will be a backup, so in case one fails. So we are talking about the failure of a mechanical machine. Why the machine will fail on such a large scale is an issue. But like Amaliba is saying, the biometric verification has some advantages. If the failure of the machine is a disadvantage, I'm sure when all of us put our heads together, we'll find a way that can retain the advantages of the machine and limit the disadvantages that come with it.
Kuku, again, I'm asking, are we not really going in circles and debating a non-issue? When the Supreme Court, dismissed the petition on the count of voting without biometric verification, one of the comments that, anchored that decision was this, and I'm reading one of the judgments. It says that the EC, during the registration exercise, made special provision to ensure that persons who, because of trauma, cannot go through fingerprint verification are not disenfranchised by being verified by face only. To prevent abuse, the FO, that's the face only, is embossed on the voter's ID card, indicated in the voter's register, and in the biodata of the BVD. It is accordingly held that the requirement by Regulation 30, Sub-Regulation 2, for the voter to go through fingerprint identification before casting votes does not infringe his or her constitutional right to vote.
Yeah. So what are we looking for?
We
I don't get it.
Want to work on
No, but even go further.
No.
There's an explanation as to why they said that.
It says that the requirement is necessary to prevent those who are not entitled to vote from voting, and thus ensure free and fair elections, as protecting the integrity of the democratic process is a central core principle of electoral justice.
Yes, I think this is just a needless exercise. Too much talk. I don't see, I've read the 31 and 2. I don't see why we should amend it. Okay? I don't see it. There's no basis. See, the machines that broke down, was it a problem with a failure of machine to identify fingerprints? No. That was not it. No. Yeah. So the quality of the machines and the personnel that were managing was the problem. We don't talk about that when we are talking of the law.
Afari Gyan admits they had inadequate time to train.
You see, Dr. Afari Gyan is somebody I respect, and in fact I like. He's a great friend of mine, and he's done a good job for this country. But we all saw what happened at the Supreme Court. There were instances where he was so unconvincing and was really problematic, had a potential of casting doubt on the integrity of the whole election process. Some of the judges acknowledge that. If you read Doche's thing, you understand? Because we're all seeing it. Fidi. You understand? So let's put that aside. I don't see any problem with this.
Doche calls it blatantly a creation of a mess.
Yes. And that was self-inflicted. Okay? Those who were the managers of the election. It's their problem. It's not the problem with the law. The problem is not with the law. So, well, I'm not that educated when it comes to election matters. Let me confess. But when I read this, I don't see the basis for any call for 32 especially to be amended. How? Why? I'm not convinced. Maybe we need more convincing arguments, persuasive arguments to get me in that direction. Otherwise, I really don't see it. And I don't have much to say on this matter. I think it's a waste of time. They should focus. The voters register itself is problematic. They should focus. Okay? So IPAD and the EC should get together and focus. There were a lot of reforms that the Supreme Court outlined, which we are not talking about. We're going to talk about amending 32 for what?
But how about those who, through no fault of theirs, the fingerprint was not
first of all, wait.
Able to pick the machine.
That is not a problem. I said the problem was more. Look, if we have, if we are not careful, yeah, I agree.
Yes,
one voter is important.
Yeah.
But if we are not careful, we amend this. It will come about. It will bring about its own mischief that we may not be able to contain.
And Bernard,
okay?
are you also minded by this posture of the court, whilst we are going probably back to the same court, that you may get what you are seeking for because they don't find any problem with the provision?
Well, I think that I am not competent enough to say what the judges would think about our issue that we are going to take to court.
So you are competent enough to know what they have already said?
I have read it, and I'm sure that while the Supreme Court itself sometimes will review its own decisions, and this is just the opinion of one of them, and obviously we'll go to court. And
there's a majority that dismissed that.
They dismissed the count because really, but it's an affront to the Constitution. There cannot be doubt about it that you say a machine, and because the machine has failed. And I like the analysis that Nana Akomia did. Look, in registering, you do the registration through a biometric process. Now you have biometrically registered. Some mistake, some error, something happened, and you cannot be verified. And the machines, because the machine has not done that, they say go home.
And if we amend, they will find ways of letting millions vote without it.
No, because you must have a voter ID card. Your name must be found in the polls book.
But it's all in the law, right?
So if
it's all in the law.
If you,
we are going
you
to amend 32.
You cannot just
create mischief.
You can't just walk to court to the polls.
As we proceed, I want us to end this and go to the NPP matter. The executive director of the Institute for Democratic Governance, Dr. Emmanuel Akwete, is saying that the EC is just stressed because it does too many activities, electioneering activities. So maybe we should have an elections administrative body to manage elections in the country. He says, for example, that the EC currently is involved in too many activities, supervising internal elections for political parties, organizing midterm elections for local assemblies, as well as organizing and supervising Council of State and presidential elections, leaving it with little or no time to perform its administrative functions.
First of all, the issue of supervising internal party elections, is it informed by law? Or is this a convention? I don't know.
It's by law.
Where is
the EC supervises that?
Yes.
No, which law? Just quote it for me. That's what I says it's an obligation.
Yes.
Yes, so where do we want to change that?
Act 574.
So we should create para-electoral commissions or bodies? Is that what we are asking for?
Nana, what do you think about this?
What we should do is to enhance the capacity. If we are talking of inadequacy of their logistics and capacity, then look at that. But we're going to create para-organizations to do elections, supervise elections. Multiplicity will bring its own problems.
Is that how you think about it as well?
But the AC is quite a big organization with nationwide offices. In between elections, basically, they are redundant in the sense that they are not actively organizing elections. So there should be enough time for the administrative duties. If it's a matter of logistics, resources, budget, and so on, we should look at it.
Maybe what do you say about that suggestion?
An institution with nationwide, they have offices in every district. So they have the capacity. And elections are once in 4 years for district.
But we know
assembly.
that for most of the work that they do, they depend on people that they employ on the go. They don't have permanent staff to do that work. They don't have the capacity
because
to do
you cannot employ permanent staff for the elections.
Right.
But they are able to do that, to employ temporary staff for the elections. The elections are only over 2 days, but they have permanent staff with district electoral officers in every district in this country, with at least 4 or 5 members of staff in every district.
I see.
And then the national organization.
What do you say
If
briefly?
you look at Article 45, that's where you can find the functions of the Electoral Commission. And there are about 6 functions, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And so for me, this is rooted in law. If the issue has to do with their inability to do administrative work.
The functions are these, that they are supposed to compile the register of voters, revise it at such periods as they may determine. Is that not it?
They are doing it.
They are supposed to demarcate electoral boundaries.
They do it.
They are supposed to conduct and supervise all public elections and referenda.
Yes.
Educate the people on election process and its purpose. To undertake programs for the expansion of the registration of voters. And lastly, to perform such other functions as may be prescribed by law.
So in this part of the law, I think that the education aspect should be hived away from them and given to NCC. Yes,
But
I
they
think
are
so.
literally doing that.
Yes.
They hardly do any serious education. This matter has been debated before. You understand? And that's we took that part of identification cards from them. At that time, we thought it was something that could be done by an independent body, which is the National.
They were evidence to be allowed to do it.
Yes, there was a debate, a whole controversy. Right now, it is the capacity. If you want to enhance their capacity, enhance it. in terms of training their personnel, train the personnel, give them sophistication.
But Bernard, this is not the case. Elsewhere, it's not the job of the EC to go through this identification process. It's not the job of the EC.
I'm sure that as part of the independence of the Electoral Commission, they should independently have their own database. To say that they should rely on somebody's database for the elections would be to say that you are compromising part of
But don't they have it? They have it.
So in gathering, taking the identification and all that, it's part of ensuring that they move in line with their independence. Secondly, I think that the issue of the temporary staff, and if you take the elections, particularly that presiding officers and returning officers did not sign some of the pink sheets that they have turned out, it's obvious that it's not the permanent staff, permanent workers of the Electoral Commission. So what are we doing about it? Can we say that the Electoral Commission should have the infrastructure of employing these people permanently and put them on their payroll? Absolutely not. What do we do to ensure that the people that we temporarily employ are able to do? And you know that the Electoral Commission, for instance, said that the last time they had a problem because teachers that mostly they will use to embark on an exercise were not available to be used. So it caused a problem for them. So next time, possibly we should find those who are educating us, the teachers, that they can take center stage in these matters, so that some of these errors that occurred, we will be able to overcome them.
Thank you very much. Now, let's move into the camp of the NPP. And I'd like to start with you, Nana Kumia, this lawsuits that you are presently facing. The Constitution. There is a member of the NPP who has for a long time been waiting for the exhibition of polls so that he will participate in the process to become a member of the National Council. He's waited, that has not happened, yet he has heard that the National Council has met and taking certain decisions. And he's gone to the court and he's telling the court that the Paul Afoko-led executive has breached the NPP constitution by purporting to call for and take part in the deliberations of the National Council without reconstituting it after they were elected into office in April of this year. Among others, he's seeking a declaration that the announcement of the 6th day of December 2014 as a date for the election of the first defendant, that is the MPP presidential candidate, is null and void. He's asking the executive to restore the constitution to its original state and to duly and properly set up the National Council in accordance with the provisions of the NPP and so on and so forth, then restraining them from further breaches of the NPP's constitution. We're being told that a professor of law is saying that this suit is dead on arrival. Are they not making any sound point? He's unnamed.
Well, something I was intrigued by the last point made by Bernard about this Electoral Commission matter, and he said that because we deviated from appointing teachers as the temporary staff, we ran into a lot of difficulties. And that's self-imposed. We actually had a directive that prohibited teachers from being engaged this time for whatever reason.
No, the reason was that they didn't want to take them away from the classrooms because the children would suffer.
Oh, so you have to then that opened the way for all kinds of party food soldiers to be engaged.
Now let's move on to the NPP and its problems.
Now, the suit is quite interesting. Samson, we're talking about the composition of the National Council of the NPP. Now, the Kweku Bako has kindly lent me his copy of the NPP Constitution. Now, I'm looking at...
You should be ashamed. You should be ashamed that you coming here and this topic is on board. Okay. You don't have your own constitution.
Okay, Amaliba.
It's an indictment.
Amaliba.
Yes.
I would accept that it's an indictment.
Okay.
I would even accept that it's a shame. No problem. But you to sometimes accept something. Amaliba.
Which is what?
That a CD is not the result of your highness.
Mischief.
Accept something small. Amaliba. Now, I was coming in and I left my constitution in my car. And on my way to fetch it, I met Kweku back, and he said he had a copy, so I didn't go back.
Okay, now I proceed.
Now, the Constitution, we're talking about the composition of the National Council of the NPP. That's the subject matter.
It ought to be reconstituted after the new executives came in.
I can't find that in the Constitution, because the National Council must be in place to be part of the election of the new executive. That's what I'm saying. So before the election of Paul Afoko and his compatriots, the National Council was in place. So this business about it has to be reconstituted after the new executive, I have a difficulty. Now, this is what the Constitution says. It talks about the representation, the constitution of the National Council. And page 39, that is article, which article is that? Article 8, section B, clause 3, on page 39, says that clause 3 provides that there should be regional representatives on the National Council. Regional representatives. That is the matter in dispute, because all the others are spelled out very clearly about the composition. It's the regional representatives that is in dispute now. Now, when you go to the regional representatives on the Article 7, Clause 15, page 33, it talks about there being one regional representative from every 5 constituencies. You are looking at 275 constituencies. So the regional representative should be 275 divided by 5. Because each 5 should have 1 who will go on the National Council to represent the region. So you divide 275 constituencies by 5, you're looking at about 55 people to be selected by the regions onto the National Council. But the Constitution also provides that half of that number should come from the regional executives themselves. But crucial, it says that they should be elected. That the region, immediately after the regional executives are elected and the regional executive committee is composed, one of the duties of the new regional executives is to elect representatives onto the National Council. It says that those representatives, half of them should be members of the regional executive committee and the half should not be members of the regional executive committee. But it says clearly that they should be selected through an electoral process at the regional level. Now, it appears that over the years, when the regional executives are elected, they choose the people who would, from among themselves, who would represent them at the National Council level. And that is what seems to have happened over the period. Now, with the new executive in place, there is a challenge that the regional executives who are on the National Council were not selected through an election, because there was no notice of poll, no procedure for a regular election to be held. So because of that, because the regional representation was not done according to the way prescribed by the Constitution, then that affects the composition, the legitimacy of the National Council. And so the courts should intervene. Like I'm saying, there's some merit, because the clear reading on page 33 very clearly talks about the functions of the regional executives. It's clause, what is it? Article, well, on page 34, it says clearly, and I quote, one of the functions of the regional executive is to elect representatives to serve on the National Council, so that 50% of the regional representatives shall be regional officers and 50% shall not be such officers. Each region shall have such number of representatives as determined by the number of constituencies, so that every 5 constituencies in the region shall have 1. Okay, so that summarizes my position. So it says clearly that they shall elect. Somebody is challenging the process used to choose the regional executive. He says that they were not through an election. It was through some selection. And so the court should intervene. It's been pointed out that this has been the mode of selection since 1992 or thereabouts. But once there's a contest, it shouldn't be a difficult problem for the NPP. I expect that the executives would, mind you, this position has been canvassed that the regional executive should be reconstituted through an electoral process. And this position has been defeated at a steering committee, National Executive Committee, and at the National Council. But once it's gone to court, that means that there's a certain uncompromising stand. Okay, no problem. We should come back together. I expect that the chairman will call an emergency meeting of the National Executive Committee, and then they will then, I believe that people should move away from their positions, and the position taking that let's just go strictly by the Constitution. The numbers that we are talking about, as I've pointed out, are just about 55 people or so. And let the regions be authorized to hold elections to produce the people for the
You're saying this
national
is what's
council.
going to happen?
No, I believe that this is what should happen. Because on the face of the Constitution, it talks about election. And there are prescribed ways of holding an election. But you see, you don't want the party's procedures to be subject to courts, sanctions, and so on.
So do I hear you clearly supporting Mr. Hoezame? Is that the name? That his position is right? That this is what ought to have happened?
That's what I've read to you.
Right.
That the Constitution on page 34, there it is.
No,
it says
I've heard what you have read.
It says that there should be election.
But you have clearly endorsed his position as the right procedure.
He has a case on the face of on the clear and ordinary reading of the NPP Constitution, the article on regional organization,
Okay.
and so on. It's very clear.
Right.
But in order not to have a prolonged process in courts, let the party go strictly by the Constitution. There are only 55 people, and just have them. And I expect that the executives will act in this manner and resolve this matter.
Kweku, you have been reading the Constitution as well. I don't know what your position, your reading tells you. Your
in black and white, the provision for, in terms of regional representatives, it is clear that they ought to be elected. That's in black and white, according to their constitution. But since 1992-93, my checks indicate that that has not been the practice. They've had a convention of through consultative negotiations and
convention that supersedes the dictates of the Constitution.
I'm making my case. Sometimes when you have conventions that grow over years, they become part and parcel of the party's practice. The fact that he wants to challenge it now...
That ought to be the case where it's not been provided for clearly, specifically.
Yes, but I'm saying that is what they have been doing all this time. And it's become almost normative.
All right.
You know, in terms of their party practice. You know, the problem I have after reading the gentleman's rate carefully, he's talking of the need for a notice of pool. Of course, that has never happened in their party's history, and at least this Fourth Republic. And he's coming from the Volta regional branch of the party.
Right.
I was thinking that his focus should have been directed at that level. That's where I think his problem should be. Now, if you push the thing to its logical base, then the elections that were held in Tamale itself, there's a collateral effect of nullity. That election, because those who took part in the elections, if you read their constitution carefully, you realize that the regional representatives, the National Delegates Conference, should come 4 weeks after the last regional election. So that National Delegates Conference that was held in Tamale, some of the regional representatives whose credentials today, local standing, is being doubted, took part in that voting process. The members, the chairman, the general secretary, and the members of the steering committee, they hold their office on basis of the votes cast there in Tamale. by some of these regional representatives. He's pushing the issue of seeking that these decisions by the National Council should be declared null and void. I'm saying if you push it too far, then the election in Tamale itself should be declared null and void. That is the repercussions, the potential of what this gentleman is doing. He's seeking his constitutional right, all right, based on the party's constitution. I do not know him, and I do not have the full benefit of MPP politics today as it goes. But I have a funny feeling that some bad fate might be driving this process. That's my feeling. It's a feeling, it's an instinct that some bad fate is driving this thing, particularly when their own constitutions also says that, look, before you proceed to court, exhaust internal grievance procedures. From my checks, that process was not undertaken. It doesn't mean he has no right to go to the courts. After all, the Constitution of Ghana supersedes all these other constitutions. Right. I agree. But I'm saying that if you are a party member, and you appreciate the sequence of events, the 6 months you have to organize presidential primaries, to elect a candidate, the fact that they are even moving into more than 5, so you could have a special Congress. If you appreciate all this, what stopped you from first executing, operationalizing the internal processes? Good faith will require that you do that and fail. So that when you have failed, because the leadership are stubborn and intransigent and unwilling to listen to you, you can then go to the appropriate forum, which is the courts. In the absence of operationalizing the internal constitutional process, I suspect bad faith. Bottom line, the party ought to handle this thing with cool heads.
We understand they have entered appearance to the suit.
Yeah, that legally they are required to do.
Right,
but I think they should seek an out-of-court settlement, because the larger party interest is at stake in terms of their calendar, election calendar,
right,
and the party's readiness for action towards 2016. So I would recommend that whatever their feelings, they should come together, find ways and means to strike an out-of-court settlement.
Okay. Now, the two of you, what is going on?
He's threatening me.
And I was hoping that you can help us look at it from this perspective. Right now, the thing out there is that he's jumped the gun. The Constitution of the NPP provides that you should exhaust internal grievance procedures before you can have recourse to the court. And because he's not done that and gone to court, we are told a law professor who is not being named says that this is dead at birth. From your perspective, I'm just reading just a line or two from Justice Dennis's recent book on interpretation, and this is a matter of Oster clauses. It says that the invocation of the court's jurisdiction is postponed in certain situations, but the courts cannot be excluded entirely from taking a final decision on a matter. Neither can the powers and authority of a court, which exercises supervisory jurisdiction over a lower adjudicating body, be ousted. Parties to a contract, note this, parties to a contract, employer and its employees, voluntary associations, that's where the NPP falls, voluntary associations, trade unions, and other statutory bodies may provide recourse to domestic tribunals. That is what they are referring to. Domestic tribunals in an attempt to resolve the issue that may crop up. In such situations, the law enjoins the parties to exhaust the mechanisms provided by the domestic tribunals before an aggrieved party may resort to the court. This is, however, subject to a few exceptions.
I thought you would read the exception, but one exception is that. Let me just give you one exception.
If there is question of fraud or something
where
of that
it can be shown that those who you are suing or those who took the decision are the same people who preside over your matter at the local level.
Right.
prejudice, bias, if you can cite those things, then you can jump the gun and go to court. So there are exceptions to it. It's not like a blanket bar that you cannot go to court. So the MPP would have to raise it, and he would have to show that he does not trust that he would have fair hearing, because the same executive...
Did he test it?
No, you don't need to test it. No. Likelihood of bias is enough. You don't have to wait for the bias to hit you. So that's the likelihood of bias.
When you are contested, so you bring evidence, some ingredients of that likelihood.
You're just mentioning the names of those who are going to preside over it and saying that they are
likelihood of bias.
Go ahead.
So it is not actual bias, but just a likelihood can trigger this process.
Bad faith.
No, Koku. So, you see, I've heard Nana Kumia and Koku say that over the years, they have not resort to the law, which say that they should elect their representatives. But you see, no matter how long a lizard stays in water, it can never become a crocodile.
That's right.
So no matter how long they were doing this, once a law provided that they should elect their representatives, the custom, the practices over the years cannot supersede what the law says. So I think that the man has a point. He has a good case. But I think that in the interest of the larger picture, and as a member of the party, he should consider. But I think the effect of his suit is to tell the MPP to do the right thing. Because as a party that professes to be a believer in the rule of law, should not be seen flouting their own regulations. They should be seen upholding their own regulations, because it casts a dent on them. And that
but their practices and their conventions are supposed to be part of what they do.
So if they are overwhelmed, as I hear Nana Akume saying, then they should go and amend that portion of the Constitution, so that what they are doing or what they will be doing subsequently will be allowed by the law. But now that the Constitution has indicated that there should be election, I think this petition, this writ is supposed to bring the MPP back to the right way. And so that's how I see it. And if I see it from that angle, it's good for them. It's a good omen for them. Because as connoisseurs of the rule of law, people who would immediately go to court should not be seen.
He could have achieved this.
Could not be seen.
This result.
Flouting their own regulations.
Operationalizing the internal thing first. If indeed it's good faith.
I have just told you how the internal thing will not work. If his target is at Afoko, is what is the name?
No, I don't want
the general secretary.
I don't want to mention names.
I'm just telling you that these are the people who preside over the matter.
That's not his target.
If he thinks that he will not get fair hearing,
disrupt the election calendar in terms of the smoothness of executing the calendar. That's all it is. Oh, but you know, people are arguing early Congress, no Congress, this, that. That is where this whole thing is.
So that's why it is rooted. This suit should be seen in a positive light, and then the FPP must amend its ways.
I see. Bernard, what do you say?
It's going to require some leadership from the steering committee. Look, otherwise they themselves will fall on their own dagger.
So we should allow the wrong things to be happening.
You are a general secretary of your party,
procedures.
the general secretary of your party. When matters like this come up and you are facing court, actions, and at the same time you are pressed for time, you need to do things. Okay. What goes through, what you decide how to do what?
Let me say, partly I agree with Kweku that there is some element of mischief, or if you want, sabotage in the efforts at ensuring that the party is able to conform with its own timetable. Because one of the issues is actually to nullify the date for the elections. And that will mean a disruption.
If the court does hear the matter and comes to the conclusion that the present National Executive Council is a nullity, is an illegality, then everything they have done falls along with them. Straight.
I am not sure about that portion. But just to indicate that the courts do also know that they have to play a role to ensure social cohesion. And so sometimes in making their judgments, they factor our cohesion, our coming together, the strength of our existence before they make certain pronouncements. In that, and particularly when we are told that issues of elections, they provide special dispensation for them, I'm sure that given the MPP timetable, the MPP team, legal team, will be able to raise the issue about the speedy dispensation of this matter so that they can finish with it early enough to allow them the sufficiency of time to go ahead with their planned timetable. I'm sure that the court will listen to them on that basis. The other thing that I wanted to point out quickly is that I have suffered that in my party severally. And you know, sometimes it's difficult to raise the element of what your party constitution says about exhausting all the internal processes before somebody goes to court. Right. The issue about who is presiding and that is affecting you, they will get biased. Tobiga, Ndeburi, and many others have gone to court. And in our last National Delegates Congress, you recall that whilst we left for Sunyani, the Friday that everyone arrived in Sunyani, ready for our Congress, Tobiga went to court and ensured that he got an injunction to stop the Congress from coming on. Just imagine that every region had taken off. We had to appeal to the Chief Justice for a court to be set up on a Saturday. So whilst we were in Sunyani, almost up to 2 o'clock, we were still waiting for the judgment to be carried so that we can go on with our Congress. And the Electoral Commission was served. So they would not move from Accra to Sunyani until they got the judgment that ensured that we could go ahead with our Congress. Eventually, it was delivered. And the Electoral Commission now had to take off from Accra to be moving to Sunyani because now they have been given the clearance. They could have also just decided that we will not come because we got this and we cannot come to your Congress. You didn't give us sufficiency of notice. But the Electoral Commission came and it led to people voting very late in the night and disrupting our calendar. I certainly think that when we go this trend in our internal party matters, it hurts. But you know, that person has a right to go to court. You can't take it away from him. So he's gone to court. Let's see what the court will say. The MPP has entered appearance. But there are more issues within the MPP. And if you take that, look, regional chairmen have jumped the gun and they have issued a statement. Right. That is a danger for the internal workings of the MPP. Regional chairmen, since when did they have a regional chairman caucus? Or it's an organ of the MPP.
The NDC has had one.
I'm saying that regional chairman should have a group that will come out and issue a statement.
Necessity is the
you
mother
understand?
of invention.
You should be able to deal with this within your party. Suddenly, things that are not recognized as organs of the party are emerging as organs of the party. And I think that it is important to look at it. You hear Kennedy Agyapong comes and say, I will campaign and vote for the NDC. So that the Ashantis will keep their MPP. That is dangerous.
Are you sure he said that?
Yeah.
He's reported as saying that if the internal wrangling does not stop.
Yeah. If it doesn't stop, this is what he's going to do. He will go ahead and campaign for the NDC and vote for them. So that the Ashantis within the MPP can keep their MPP.
But you know what he's saying is simply a way of warning the MPP.
No, but that is dangerous comment.
That you cannot contemplate a Kennedy Agyapong campaigning.
That is a dangerous caption for a politician of his stature.
Right.
Somebody who has been in parliament.
If it is true that he actually made those comments.
Cabo comes to say that, look, democracy without strategy is dangerous. Then you have Ohinin too come and make his statement. Then you have Kofi Juma come and say that, look, we are almost like we don't know our rules.
Has written a long letter and he's asking people to come.
And these are and this is what Cabo says, that look, whilst the youth are credited for agitations, for disruptions and what have you, in this particular difficulties that the MPP is going through, it is unfortunate that the youth are actually the ones that are trying to bring in peace this time around. It is, quote, the elderly that are trying to ensure that the party breaks away. What is the problem? They are going for a flag bearership contest. About 7 people have picked their nomination forms. You have Osei Ameyao, you have Asamoah Boateng, you have Adai Nimo, you have Kofi Konadu Apreku, you have Nana Addo, you have Joe Garte, and you have Alan Kyerematen.
We'll come back shortly after this break to ask the question whether Alan Kyerematen is the game changer.
Conclude so for me, these are people that have just picked up form. I'm waiting for my friend Nana Akomia to pick up form. Dan Boche, Richard. I'm waiting. And you know, Richard Anani told us that people are compelling him. They are coming to him so he can pick a form. Of course, I had a personal chat with Isaac. I'm not sure whether Isaac Osei who
some
said
some of you use that to indict the NPP.
No, where he says
but
that,
there are those who say this is the beauty
no,
of
where
democracy.
he says that he's not.
It tells you that their credentials as a democratic institution.
I'm saying that picking of nomination forms alone,
it degenerates into a circus.
Right.
No.
Okay.
I'm saying that picking of nomination forms
Right.
does not necessarily mean filing. Many people who pick up these nomination forms, they will go out there.
They pay the 10,000.
They may want to make a statement.
You have to pay
yeah.
the
They are assisting the party.
more.
They are assisting the party to be able to mobilize.
No, you pick just
finance.
take this one as final. You pay the 10,000 and pick
I
nomination
thought the other
forms
one was the final.
and
Thank
go
you
around.
very much. Thank you very much. And like Nana and Kweku have said, and almost all of you have said, maybe the party ought to be more interested in seeking an out-of-court settlement, because I'm getting messages from very important people, even within the party, who suggest that they agree with Nana's analysis and Kweku's analysis of what the MPP's constitution says, and that if the party does not take time and decides to follow to court, they may have a very serious issue to deal with.
It can quickly be dispensed with.
And I'm being alerted to something that if you look at the English dictionary, the definition of elect is simply to choose, select, to designate, to choose by vote. So the word is broad in its connotation.
We are talking
Chew,
law.
chew upon
We are
that.
talking law, not
chew
English.
upon that.
Well,
We'll be
that's
right back
interesting.
after this break.
That's
interesting.
All right, you're welcome back. This is Newsfile, your most authoritative news analysis show, and this show is also brought to you by the kind sponsorship of Vital Mineral Water. And as my attention was drawn to the English language and reading of the dictionary, looking up the Collins Thesaurus, for example, you find that the word elect is defined in 5 different ways. So elect could mean to choose, appoint, decide upon, designate, and the 5th option is vote. So you may want to look at that closely and come to a certain conclusion that it could have been what has been informing the NPP's decision to use the process they have been using since 1993, is it? Some messages here. This one, you don't identify yourself. You say, for your information, Supreme Court judges' book and fuel allowances have not been paid since 2009. Okay, you should have identified yourself. This is the kind of message I want to know who it is that is sending. Now, Lord says, what relief are available to those who could not vote because the machine could not verify them? Okay, Ejakwa in Brekum. Okay, Ejako in Brekum says that from what Bernard is saying, what then should happen to people who turn 18 years 3 months before election day? Won't that be a breach of the Constitution? Okay. Bernard says if they are not registered, that's it. This one to no name says the matter of a legal action against the NPP is pending before a law court, and its discussion on your network, in my opinion, might not only be prejudicial but also unfair. Okay, thank you. Kadr in Kunat, is it Kunate? Daboya writes, upon the biometric verification machine, people of Daboya North, Gonja, managed to vote many times. To me, let's go with the manual way of voting. Joseph, we are progressing. Joseph Neti, Catholic University, Siani says something. I think the political parties should consider the use of eye and face recognition technologies. Thank you very much. Interesting suggestions coming from all over. And that's what it is, trying to put heads together. Now, the question of bias that you were talking about, there's a lawyer who says something. The test for bias in Ghana is real likelihood of bias. And he refers us to Attorney General versus Salah, Republic versus High Court, Denu ex parte Agbeshi. Thank you very much. Power. And then Togbi Dominion in Accra says, I agree with Kokubako. The problem is not with the law. The NDC should stop the tactics of bringing foreigners. Okay, where you're going, please. I don't want you to take me there. And then Kweku Entry says that, says that, Samson, I doubt if there is any farmer whose fingerprints have been erased because of farming. But if that's all the problem, that should come up during registration. How come the same machine allows a person to register but then rejects the same finger during voting? The problem is not the biometric voting machine, methinks. Thank you very, very, very much. Right.